your lease is ending and you have the opportunity to renew it and keep continuity, that would be ideal, obviously. I mean, people have to deal with their individual circumstance, but I don't know really what guidance. If you've got some, I welcome it.
So the recommendation would be what we've been saying. If the individuals who are doing the moving are asymptomatic, and everybody's asymptomatic, then go about your life, minimize, contact and exposure, and then do it as quickly as possible. But folks shouldn't stop doing the essential things in their lives, right? We want people to continue with the essentials, and if having a stable housing, I mean, that's pretty essential. So I would certainly encourage it, but I would want people to be diligent and vigilant, right? Those are my two new favorite words. Diligent about hand washing, covering your mouth and your nose when you cough and you sneeze, and being vigilant about whether or not you are developing symptoms of fever and a cough, fever and shortness of breath. I think that we are far enough in this outbreak where New Yorkers should assume that in some place, shape, or form, they've already been exposed to COVID-19. And the important thing now is to be vigilant about whether or not they develop symptoms. And if they do, to stay home. And if they haven't, then to double down on all of the preventive measures we've been saying in terms of hand washing, covering hands and cough, etc.
Rich?
Good point. We all have it, guys.
About the shelter in place, have your
Possibly.
medical personnel, your esteemed medical personnel here weighed in on whether they like that idea or not, and are you prepared to let us know what their opinion is?
First of all, thank you for calling them esteemed. It's a conversation we're going to be having starting today in detail. Again, a parallel conversation with the state. But I'm saying, as the person who manages the decision process, I think we have to come to that decision in the next 48 hours. So we're going to get everyone to weigh in, as we always do. Aaron?
A couple things on shelter in place. The governor said today it cannot happen. No city in the state can quarantine itself without state approval. And I have no interest whatsoever, no plan whatsoever to quarantine any city. So do you know, first of all, I don't know if there's a distinction between quarantine and shelter in place that he's making there, or if not, are you guys on the same page?
I'll let my colleagues, and again, we're going to be in intensive conversations with the state today and tomorrow. And always respect the role of the state. And let me affirm, I think the state has handled this crisis very, very well. And we've been working closely together, all of us, and we've been very aligned on the decisions. I don't hear the word quarantine as the exact equivalent of the words shelter in place. Shelter in place to me is a kind of way of life, if you will, and a more total strategy. And quarantine suggests when you're dealing with a very specific, narrow area and who goes in and who goes out of that area. I think they're kind of two different things. I'm saying as a layman. But again, we respect the role of the state always. I just think it's decision time.
If this were to happen with the ability to leave the city,
Louder, please.
you would still be able to leave the city.
I am not an expert on something that we don't know enough about yet, and something that we would have to determine the ground rules of. And again, I'm going to say it, and I will really appreciate if it's reflected in coverage because it's true. The actions we would have to take to compensate would be immense. And that is a plan we don't have because it's never been done before. And it's a lot we would have to work out very quickly. So this is not a simple decision. This is a very, very tough decision. But how it would work and questions, very fair question like that, I don't have that answer right now because we have not even gotten to the decision of whether we think it's the right thing to do. As we look at it, we're going to try and figure out all those elements. Again, it's a perfectly fair question. It's just you're asking about a question about something we haven't even fully modeled yet. Go ahead.
Just two quick questions. The first for Dr. Barbeau or perhaps Dr. Katz. Of the 7 deaths in New York City, were they all hospitalized at the time of their death?
Yes.
And the second question is for city employees. I've been hearing from city employees that they still don't understand their guidance of whether they should come to work. And things like the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, this is I guess it's from my research, they're still having oath hearings, so waiting rooms are still really busy. So I guess people don't know the guidance there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking someone else. My apology.
Dr. Rubone, the next one was for
My
you.
apology.
So I've heard from city employees who are still confused of their guidance about whether they should come to work. And in addition, places like the Department of Political Waiting Room is still open. Oath trials are still going on. Will there be further guidance to say no more oath hearings, no more permits being filed?
Each thing is going to be, each issue is going to be addressed day by day. There are essential things, essential work still going on in different forms. There's things we might determine to be less essential that we would shut down. The first question was who could telecommute and who could stagger hours. And that's been advanced substantially. But those examples you gave, to the best of my knowledge, are kind of things you couldn't do with telecommuting. But I think it's a very fair question. Are they now things that are kind of arcane in light of this crisis or could be delayed? You heard, of course, yesterday in the executive order, we delayed the land use process, for example. So I think we're literally going piece by piece, trying to identify what needs to be brought down next. Even if we're not doing shelter in place, we will constantly be trying to refine that. So let us agree, we'll give you answers on those two by the next time we meet. Thank you. Who hasn't gone? Go ahead.
I have a few questions. One is just a little more clarity on, I know you said you're not sure what shelter in place would mean, but the difference between shelter in place and quarantine. Like Scott Stringer is calling for shelter in place, but the governor is very adamant that New York will not be quarantined, and a lot of people are thinking that's the same thing.
Again, I tried to answer that a moment ago. I respect the concern is real, and it's just really, really simple. This is a decision that should be made with the state. It should be made in the next 48 hours, given the trajectory of this crisis. I don't want to be the guy who defines for anyone what's the difference between quarantine and shelter in place, because we're still trying to learn what shelter in place could mean. And obviously, when the governor says it, you should ask him what his interpretation is. But I don't think it's time to say this person likes this idea, this person likes that idea. It's time for the city decision makers to refine our thinking on whether we think it's the right thing to do and how on earth would we do it, and to align with our state colleagues on what they think and see if we can all come to a common vision.
Jails, LA and Ohio are both releasing people. About how long is it going to take for
I want to be clear, I have not heard the standards. I don't think we're suggesting I have not heard of any wholesale release. I assume it's based on certain standards.
Self-release is based on certain standards, but Eric Gonzalez this morning said that he's no longer going to prosecute low-level crimes that would, or things that would harm the public safety. So how long is it going to take our city to start assessing on that?
The assessment is starting already, has started. That's a decision also I'd like in the next 48 hours to know who, if we have people in our jail system who should not be there at this point in this crisis or don't need to be there, or we have an alternative that makes sense. I want to get that resolved quickly.
Sorry, one more. The ferries are currently serving alcohol and been called, and are currently serving alcohol, and they're basically advertising happy hour still. Is that something you guys?
I don't think they're attempting to do anything inappropriate. I think they've been advertising happy hour all along, is my understanding. But what is your question?
My question is basically, if we're closing bars and restaurants, what's going on with food service and the alcohol consumption on our?
I think, and I'm not. You're the first person to ask about that, so I'm just going to give you my common sense answer. It's all takeout. So by definition, it fits that model. And the ferries are still part of how people get around, and we're still keeping our transportation network up. So I don't hear a problem per se, but maybe I'm missing something.
But I mean, people are on these ferries for a while, so isn't it creating a situation that's a little bit confusing since they're not traditionally taking it out? They're being able to be on the ferry for sometimes 10 to 40 minutes.
No, I appreciate it, and I think you're right that there should be a social distancing dynamic, but I think the core notion, I mean, I've been on the ferries. It's not a seated restaurant. It's not a seated bar. It's a takeout counter. So I think your excellent point would be to say the ferries, and we'll follow up on our follow-up list with EDC, need to practice social distancing to the maximum extent possible while getting people where they need to go. But at least hearing it on first blush, it sounds like takeout to me and therefore appropriate, but we'll check. On what? I think it's something that we have to look at everything in light of a crisis. The standard with the Rent Guidelines Board has now been established for 7 years, unlike everything that came before. We actually look at the full cost to the entire equation, the costs that landlords deal with, the economic factors. We take into account tenants. We look at everything. And that has gotten us to the decisions that have been made over time, including 2 rent freezes. So we would start with a proven formula. Whether that formula gets varied because of a global crisis is a great question. It's something, of course, we have to consider, but we're not there. I think that's May. I'm not sure I'm right about that, but I feel like it's a ways off. So excellent question. We'll come back.
Have you heard about a cluster of about maybe 100 positive coronavirus positive tests in Williamsburg?
If we had a cluster, I assure you we would tell you. I asked this very day. We do not have any clusters in New York City. If we had a cluster in New York City, we would tell you. I asked right before coming out here. I'm not trying to be difficult with you. That's like a giant important question. I asked right before coming out here, confirming we have no clusters in New York City. Answer yes. You can look at the people who gave me the answer right here.
Okay, guys. Like I told you, minute to minute. Okay, we're going to cut this and we're going to record some more of this. Just because this is New York, this is going to be happening everywhere. Every city, every town, every state. This basic scenarios you're hearing today are going to be running through your state. And if they're not, you need to contact your governor and say, what the hell are you doing? Get off the pot and get on it. And that goes for you double, little Kate of Oregon. We expect our checks in the mail tomorrow. We expect you to debt waiver, sign off tomorrow. I'm going to keep watching you, little Kate, because I live in Oregon. I'm an Oregonian. I was born here. And you need to take care of Oregon people first for once. And you're not going to be able to slide. As far as the president goes, sounds like he's heading the right direction. Let's keep him going that way. I love you guys. Contact your own representatives in your own states. If you can get through, if you can't, hammer messages. Leave messages. Write a letter for once. Emails. Whatever you have to do. And it may not even get looked at, but at least you're trying. So Team 99, I salute you today because you're ahead of the curve. I got one more run out for supplies. I'll be home. I'll make some more videos. And healthcare sucks. Over and out.